Well, Lawrence has a very impressive bio. I'm just going to give you a couple highlights so that most of the time can be dedicated to hearing from him directly. But Lawrence Williams is an experienced IT security consultant with extensive Department of Defense experience, a colonel in the United States Army with 22 years of service, a former Department of the Army civilian in IT and cybersecurity, and a former federal contractor at the Army Materiel Command. He is the new director of the Minority Serving Cyber Infrastructure Consortium, aka MSCC. He has a master's in information systems from Syracuse University, and among the many, many impressive things he's done, I think there's the lead floor. He's overseen IT projects supporting the U.S. Army Theater of Operations in 6 Middle Eastern countries. With that, I'll leave it to you, Lawrence.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to present. I am truly passionate about the MSCC and the work that we're doing here with minority serving institutions, and particularly HBCUs. I am a graduate of Hampton University. That's where I got my undergrad, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities that it's presented me. I'd like to take a couple minutes and talk in detail about the MSCC and what we're doing for the community, and maybe how we can collaborate in the future. And if nothing else, just some takeaways so you know what the activities we're sharing in our community. I think at this point everyone can see my slides. Let's see, they should be bigger than this.
They're a bit on the small side. I don't know, maybe that might be just on my end.
I think we're seeing your desktop, not the, there we go, perfect.
All right, there we go. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the MSCC today, and wanted to start with the vision of the MSCC. The vision of the MSCC is that it's to develop a transformational partnership to promote advancement of cyber infrastructure capabilities on HBCUs, HSIs, TCUs, and MSI campuses. So we want this partnership to expand cyber infrastructure for not just HBCUs or TCUs, but all minority serving institutions. I think it's critical that all institutions have the capability to work with cyber infrastructure, especially when it comes to research in the fields of science and engineering. So some of our guiding principles: inclusion, innovation, and stakeholder value. Inclusion is very important to me, and when we talk about inclusion specifically, we're referring to the inclusion to access to research architecture, right? Inclusion of minority serving communities to make sure that they have the ability to share their ideas and concepts. One of the things that was brought to me on a conference is, imagine the data and the progress that we could have, or data we receive and the progress that could be made if some of our younger scientists were able to understand data science better, that they could even use it to further some of their ideas, right? Maybe when they're at Black Lives Matter protests, that they're able to use data science to find some correlations between some of the protests in various cities. And I had never thought about that, right? There's a lot of ways that you can use data, and our young people are very, very innovative, but a lot of them at small institutions don't have access to a lot of data capabilities. So the MSCC is really trying to bring that to them in a way that is accessible. And for inclusion, that I think that's critical. Also innovation. A lot of the larger institutions have access to funds and access to programs that aren't available to smaller universities, right? And that doesn't just include HBCUs or TCUs, but just small universities as a whole. And I think there's a lot that together we can use to have additional innovation in things. And stakeholder value. Stakeholders for the MSCCs include researchers, educators, students, cyber infrastructure professionals. I think the MSCC is really bringing value to all of these stakeholders in various ways. And we're going to talk about that in a little more detail here shortly. So the MSCC first started with a survey in 2020. And this is where we really started gaining momentum. And the survey was to collect current data on computing infrastructure landscape. the purpose of the study was to determine funding requirements, right? We wanted to establish priorities for HBCUs and TCUs and HSIs and other minority serving institutions. As you can see, we had about 291 respondents across 144 institutions. What this says is that there was an interest, and we also found out that there was a need. Based on that survey, we were able to put together some thought leaders at various institutions, all HBCUs and TCUs, to be awarded a NSF grant. This NSF grant was for to develop a center of excellence and a demonstration pilot for a minority serving cyber infrastructure consortium, and that's how the MSCC was originated. Some of the objectives included create a connectivity and collaborative organization that serves as a centralized hub for HBCUs, TCUs, and other MSIs to utilize for CI advocacy, guidance, and expertise. And what we have found is that prior to this, other institutions had different experiences, whether they're conferences, workshops, or surveys that did the same thing. But there wasn't one organization that was a connective tissue that could do this long term. Since the MSCC has started with this demonstration pilot, I have received personal contact from various organizations, from corporations to science organizations that want to participate. And I think that's the key for the MSCC, to be that connective tissue to help organizations access some of the great things that are happening at the smaller universities or in MSIs. The other objective is to increase awareness, availability, and financial support for professional development opportunities for faculty, staff, and students at HBCUs, TCUs, and other MSIs. We also want to enhance communication among researchers, university leadership, and CI professionals. The last is to increase access to shared CI resources at MSCC organizations. And we've been doing that in a number of ways. We're not even a year into the pilot, and we've already started making some of these connections, whether it's with OSG, other organizations, and this is just on a small scale, and we haven't even ramped up to really get flowing into some of the things that we will do on a larger scale. And we're going to talk about some of our activities here shortly. So in this NSF demonstration pilot, a couple things wanted to highlight. Wanted to show the scientific and broader impacts. We wanted to make sure that we're able to highlight the advanced understanding of the benefits of shared CI across a distributed community of colleges and universities in a mix of urban, suburban, and rural settings. What we've noticed with some of the MSIs is that if you're in a rural setting, access to things as simple as broadband is somewhat challenging, right? Also, access to CI resources is challenging. We've seen, for some of the larger MSIs that are in proximities with larger institutions, it's easier for collaboration. But what do you do with the MSIs that are in more rural communities? How do we have that connective tissue? How do we make sure that they can collaborate with larger institutions? And the MSCC is working to make sure that we build that connective tissue so that all institutions for the underserved communities can participate in that. We also want to advance understanding around the importance of multi-stakeholder consortia supporting CI. There's a lot of resources out here when it comes to cyber infrastructure. And we want to make sure that not only that it's available, but the HBCUs and TCUs are able to take advantage of it in a way that supports their institution. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart is to be able to increase diversity in the STEM talent pool and workforce. I think it's without saying that, a lot of minorities are underrepresented in the STEM community, and we want to make sure that they have access to STEM resources. So, in the future that we can kind of level the playing field when it comes to the science and technology community. We also want to increase the availability of workforce development opportunities for researchers, professional staff, and students at HBCUs, TCUs, and other MSIs. The workforce development opportunities is something that I think we all need to pay attention to. In cybersecurity specifically, which is my area of expertise, I read a study once that was saying that in the next 5 to 10 years that we will be almost 1 million, we'll have 1 million cybersecurity jobs that will go unfilled, right? Because we don't have the training pipeline to address all those needs. So this is something that I think that we all can pay attention to, and that we all can work together to help, fill those voids. So here's some of the things that we've already started doing with the demonstration pilot. And I'm very proud of this because, in a short amount of time, we've done a lot of activities. So right now we're in May, and we've already hired staff for the MSCC, myself included, as the director. But we were able to start coordinating all of these activities going into the first quarter of 2023. One of the ways that we're going to build this connective tissues is through workshops. As you can see that we have what we call cyber infrastructure days planned at these various universities, also HBCUs and TCUs. And in addition to a cyber infrastructure day, we're going to have a security workshop. What I like about our concept is it's not just a regular workshop where you'll go for a day or two and you'll talk about cyber infrastructure or talk about cybersecurity. What we've already planned, and we have the data that shows, is that we're building a community of interest. So for each of these workshops, we're inviting particular members of these communities within a 250-mile radius. And this is the first phase of building that connective tissue. So for each workshop is the start of building that community of practice. We're starting with cyber infrastructure that talks about, the benefits of cyber infrastructure for the faculties and staff of these different universities, highlights their activities. But then we're really using that information, that time, to build a network. So now we have the connective tissue. So the next phase, so next year when we go back, or throughout the years, when we have activities that support expansion of cyber infrastructure, whether that's grant funding, activities that increase cyber infrastructure on the campus, now we have already a network and a community where we can start building from there. Same with the cybersecurity workshops. These aren't your typical workshops where we just talk about, a concept, which we will. The first workshops are going to center on ransomware. But we also want to develop what we're calling a community of excellence, right? So where we can share resources, where we can share ideas in a community of local institutions, right? What we've found is that each university is different. They have different needs. And it's not going to be possible for us to have a one-size-fits-all solution. But by developing a local community of practice, that we can start tailoring solutions that fit institutions in a specific area, specific geographical area. And right now, I think that we've had a lot of positive feedback on that. And I'm excited to see what that's going to yield in time to come. This is probably the slide that I'm most proud of. When MSCC first started, we had about 11 institutions that were partners with it, including HBCUs and some larger universities. As of today, when I was working with my staff, we're up to 37 universities that are members of, and this is just HBCUs that are members of the MSCC. So in about a year's time, we've doubled the amount of HBCUs that are members of the MSCC. And we don't have all the data for the TCUs, but it has increased dramatically. So I'm very proud of the progress we've made in a short time. And I'm looking for partners. I'm looking for organizations that are willing to work with us and help us with innovative ideas on how we can bring resources and help develop a community of practice. Right now, we're exploring different things like, maybe the MSCC can have an, I don't want to say an organization, but have something like a REN ISAC where we can provide, some type of security information to local HBCUs, or maybe even a SOC that will provide certain security operations for a set of HBCUs, right? So we're still tailoring the output that we'll have, but we're always looking for ideas. We're looking for partners. We're looking for people who want to contribute to the benefit of the community as a whole. So with that, I will open the floor for questions and discussion.
Thanks so much, Lawrence. And I did put in the chat the link to join the MSCC. For those from UC San Diego, we're already on the map. Uh, and actually, I think 2 meetings ago, our director gave a presentation on OSG at the monthly all hands meeting. So at least for our team, don't feel like you've got to fill it out again, but I'd certainly encourage you, even if you see your institution, to get on the mailing list, because it's a great way to stay involved and find ways to plug in. So do we have any questions?
Sure. Hi, Christine. This
Hi,
is
Renata.
Renata. Hi. I had a question about this. I think, thank you. It's a really great presentation and I think a wonderful idea. We worked with Dr. Allo to write you guys a letter of support for this. So I love it. And then I was interested, you have a background, you're in Atlanta. We're doing a researcher training in the fall, and whether this would be a resource is the CODATA one. Christine said if this was to be a resource that you could speak about. I think it's going to be researchers that are in the health equity space, so looking at researchers of color and trying to get them spooled up on open data research, as well as part of it is going to be introductions to different forms of cyber infrastructure. And so whether there's a place, even if it's just to repeat this presentation with that group, there's a 2-day in-person component where I think it would be very valuable for the participants to know more about being a part of this consortium.
Absolutely. I would love to participate. We do have Dr. Damien, I can't think of his last name, forgive me, but he's at Meharry currently, and he's done a lot of innovative things around research, infrastructure, and kind of the medical. He's a CIO at Meharry, so in that space. So, he could share or I could share. We could tailor presentations to the audience, right? I'm always excited to share everything about the MSCC. So sometimes I have to kind of, slow down and make sure that I'm addressing the needs of the audience. But we would love to participate. I can send you my information in the chat, and we can figure out, how we can, connect the dots.
Sure, that would be great. And we'll send you, it's because the in-person part will be in Atlanta. It'll be at Georgia Tech.
Okay.
But then the bulk of the program will be online. So we can try to work out, but I think it would be nice, particularly since it's this intermesh network. So if you send me your email, we'll.
Absolutely, I look forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Renata, the great idea. And just on a tangent, so this group has a history of working with Dr. Damian Clark. When he was at Alabama A&M, we partnered with him. So this group got together and, this group nominally, representatives from each of the hubs put together an open storage network proposal that was awarded. And Damian applied through the CC STAR program for Alabama A&M and has a pod set to land. He's not there anymore, but Alabama A&M will be a node on that network. And so that's something we could talk about in the future, coming in and speaking more about. I think we missed this round of CC STARs that are being written, but maybe in advance of next year's other ways that the hubs and the MSCC can partner.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to highlight about that, Dr. Damian Clark is an amazing individual. But, my vision for the MSCC is to survive long after I'm gone, right? And even though Dr. Clark is no longer at, Alabama A&M, his work that he did there through the CC STAR program is still, active. Now there's a interim CIO, Ms. Kylie Nash. She's doing a great job there, and the work is continuing. And that's ultimately what I would love to see. I think that's what's important to the community, that the work that we're doing, the connectivity that we're doing, it's not based on me as an individual. It's based on the organization, the grants, and things that can, perpetually benefit the organizations long-term.
Yes, amen to that. Another thing that I've noticed since I've been a member of the MSCC is that it's a good place to hear about other openings or,
Yes.
Renata was talking about the group of researchers that are coming in for trainings, but it might be a wonderful way for that group to hear about the other opportunities that are in kind of the research cyber infrastructure realm. And if you find something you latch onto, it's okay to pursue that and go in that direction too.
Yes, there are a lot of collaborative projects that have been connected through the MSCC, and that's something, again, that we're very proud of. And it doesn't have to be, something as formal as, the CC STAR program or NSF grant. It could be something, that, your institution is working on, and you'd want to open some seats to, other universities, HBCUs or TCUs. I would tell you that I'm always impressed when I work with the university and I'm learning some of the activities that they're having. And it is refreshing to be able to connect, HBCUs to other universities that are doing something similar in research areas, right? I think that, when we start talking about innovation and collaboration, there's only expansion, only good things that can happen from that.
Well said. Well, do we have any other questions before we stop the recording? And Renata has put in the chat a link to the Smart Dart program that she had mentioned.
So I have a quick question, and because I have not had a chance to really look through your collaboration materials on the website. For the cybersecurity aspect of what you're working on, are you linked in with the Trusted CI group at Indiana and beyond Indiana, Illinois?
So yes, we are linked in with Trusted CI. Again, we don't have, I can't think of a current project with, we're doing with Trusted CI. I met with them last week. So we are looking at ways that as a group, now some of our member institutions are doing things with Trusted CI. I don't have any of them off the top, I can't name them off the top of my head, but I have spoken with Trusted CI. So we are making that link from an organizational standpoint.
Well, that's great. I guess I might add that potentially for your cybersecurity days or for activities going forward, there's fellows cohorts that have been active, for the last 3 or 4 years now. And, it might be a nice opportunity for the fellows to talk about, their experiences and the training and then the projects they worked on, because all the projects are quite different. So just, it might be a nice match. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. Okay, I'll look into that.
Well, and not to put Jay on the spot, but Jay's someone who's been a leader in this group in the intersection of cybersecurity and data science. And Lawrence, you come with a huge background in cybersecurity. In fact, you still have a consultancy, as I understand. So you're, deep into this space. I just wanted to make that connection, Jay. And if you had anything to say about current topics or groups you're trying to get together, keep going, please.
Thank you, Christine. Just very quick introduction of myself, Lawrence. I'm a professor in RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. I've been working with this group over the past, not the recent months, but last year mostly, that hosting webinars, trying to really pushing forward data science, machine learning, really for cybersecurity purposes. Of course, I do my research as well. One of the things that I'm working on right now is really try to create curriculums and create curating data sets, and it's really meaningful to teach data science in general for practitioners. We see that a lot of materials out there. I'm actually checking through some of the links that was posted in the chat. One of the things that there's a lot of data science AI ML materials out there people can use. But one of the things that I found it very interesting is that the practical real world cybersecurity data, the network traffic, for example, the logs, they're far from ideal. They're not like ImageNet out there. Everything's very ideal, very realistic. So for example, my RIT student this semester in my class talk about the type of real world data I expose them to, the amount of pre-processing, the significance of pre-processing for those real world data is very important, and that's often ignored and not necessarily taught in those online classes or certificate programs. So I'm trying to see how I can help increase that awareness and kind of really put that into a way that really tightly couple data science teaching with the actual SOC operations. That's one of the agenda. We just wrote a proposal to NISF and submitted recently, but also that, of course, there's a lot of research prototype we do as well. Just quick overview of what I do, but very nice hearing a lot of this effort that you're working on, Lawrence.
So let me say that I'm really excited that that's something you're working on. I think about some of my experience when I first got into real world projects with the Department of Defense. And, you know, when you really get into the data, you know, at least when I first did, I was like, man, this isn't like what I learned, right? Like, it's not the same. And it did take me a while to try to figure out, okay, well, here's how we need to approach analyzing this data, because it's not just like your practice data sets. And from the DoD perspective, it's kind of like, you know, you can't train on it until you're in it, right? Because of the level of security and everything like that. So that was a challenge. So to hear that, you know, somebody is addressing that at a high level, I'm super excited. We are looking at potentially having or trying to figure out how we could have a SOC that supports some of our institutions. We're not there yet, but if we do get that, I would love to work with you on kind of taking some of your work and, you know, kind of spreading that out amongst our institutions, right? That knowledge is critical, I would tell you. I know that there are some, you know, I'm in Atlanta. We have the Cyber Center of Excellence out at Fort Gordon. And I know that there's some work out there that's kind of similar. So maybe that's, we don't have an HPC that's participating now, but, and I know I'm aware of this from my military experience, but there's a lot of things I think we can do to partner in the future. So I'd love to, you know, kind of sit down and talk with you and figure out how we can, you know,
Absolutely.
work.
Let me, I'll put my email in the chat in a minute. One of the things I want to share is that RIT is also NISF designated Center of Excellence for both education and research. And we have some training programs that for both beginners, right, as well as that for more high level in-depth kind of security analysts. Definitely, I want to talk to you a little bit more and see how we can help you with. And one of the things that for underrepresented minority institutions, HBCUs and so on, is we are working with a lot of local state government to see that what we can do to get scholarships and things like that. And RIT, if you don't know, we also have NTIDs, the different kinds of underrepresented minorities, is the hard of hearing, deaf. And then they actually have a very large population to interesting cybersecurity kind of jobs. And we're also helping this group of people try to think about creating curriculum that will fit their needs as well. So I'll put my email address in the chat. Maybe you and I can connect a little bit. I'll introduce you. I'm not in charge of everything that I talk about. So I do want to connect you to the right person and see how we can help you for your members, for your institutions.
I really would appreciate it. Look forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Lawrence. I hope if nothing else, we've opened up to a dialogue. If there's something that the group represented here can help out with, feel free to call upon us. Those of us who are members will continue to look for opportunities to connect. And if nothing else, I think the message is, you know, that we should stay up to date on what the MSCC is doing and to check in early when there are chances to partner.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for the invite. I appreciate it. Look forward to working with everyone in the future.
Absolutely. I just wanted to also add, I noticed you had supercomputing on that timeline, the most fun and terrifying 4 days of November. But
only 4, huh?
well, okay, it stretches into 2 weeks when you do it all. But anyway, I was also just going to say we would look forward to sort of maybe getting together with you and seeing how we can sort of amplify and collaborate across the different efforts that we have. I know that, you know, the folks who go to supercomputing and others aren't necessarily, you know, it's the larger centers, but we really want to sort of support what you're doing and help amplify that across the whole country as much as we can. So look forward to seeing you there. And I don't know if you have any exposure into PERC. I know other folks are going to be at that. So I think there's some good opportunities to sort of get together and in 3 dimensions actually try and figure out some good collaborations in the near future.
Absolutely, absolutely. So across the board, I am more than welcome to sit down and talk about it. I am aware of PERC. We won't be attending this year just because of the amount of activities we have.
Sure. No,
But next year we'll definitely have a presence. We're even looking at maybe having a booth at PERC. So we're trying to lay it all out. And if
that'd
it's
be
not
great.
me, there will be a representative from MSCC. But always feel free to reach out to me. And if it's not something that's my specific area of expertise, I can definitely align you with who that is.